State tax, there's a word for it. I don't know what the word is, but there is a word for it. How do
set off?
set off? I think is yeah. How does that work? Does that go through the treasurer's office? You send a notice to the treasurer that says,
Yeah, Beth is responsible. The treasurer is responsible for collecting all money in Caroline County. The utility department bills for everything. She's the responsible party for the actual collection portion. But she needs to be able to certify to the court, who will certify to whoever, and that's the process. We need to make sure that we, being utilities and the treasurer's office, understand the procedure that we need to follow to make sure that we do that appropriately. So then that's what we've got to get down and figure out how that's done.
okay. We only meet once this month, so would it be possible for you to have that process written out so the board could see it, at least for our information in November?
I'll contact Stafford County and see if we can try to make a visit between now and then to understand the process.
Okay. Yeah, I think if we could do something like that, we'd at least know. That's probably the most effective or efficient way to do it if there is some kind of refund, because the lien part is just going to take years.
Right.
But then again, on the other side, if I've lost my job, I can't afford to pay my bill, I'm probably not going to have a tax return. But that just may be the easiest. All right, Mr. Popowitz, did you have questions regarding this?
That's right.
Mr. Underwood?
No, Mr. Chairman, just a comment. Joey and I have talked about the situation. Mr. Schiebel and I have talked about the situation. And certainly I've talked to Eldridge about the situation. The fact is we have a very poor land quality in this area. That's why it's called frog level, as you know. So when we look at that, for me, there are things that we as members of the county have to help one another. This is a situation where I'm asking those of us who live in an area where we have the basic quality of life in place, sewer, to help residents who can't get it for themselves. Certainly we can look at ways to bring people current, and I think the best way to do is have some conversations. We constantly talk about taking, but most of the time we're taking from the little guy. And these folks clearly, many of them are unemployed on, as we talked about, the connections are in very low economic status. So I think we need to do all we can to support one another rather than penalize folks. Don't penalize people who already are in dire straits for the basic quality of life. I think it's important that we bring everyone to a standard that's above reproach.
Is that a motion to go ahead?
So I make that motion, Mr. Chairman, that we appropriate the
150,345.
Well, with his fee, actually, brings to 160. Is that correct? It was 150.
No, he's taking $10,000 off because his fee is already in there, right?
Right. Yeah. The amount you would need to make up would be $150,345.
$153.45. That's your motion?
That's my motion. 153.45.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. So we will move forward, Mr. James, and according to the staff notes we have, staff is going to work with you because your contract continues through December 31st, but we're funded through the fiscal year.
Through the end of the fiscal year, we'll just need to extend the contract to match with that, and we'll deal with the future in the next budget process.
Okay.
And I want to thank you all very much. I look forward to the next time I get to come and give you a progress report on Dawn Phase 2. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We really look forward to when you're coming back to say we've got X number of businesses that want to move to Dawn. So
I look forward to that as well, sir.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. James. It's always a pleasure seeing you. That takes care of presentations. We add the sheriff and let him go first. We have appointments, Recreation Advisory Board. And I think Mr. Underwood, you and Mr. Akers were working out who had the next one?
Mr. Akers was going to take since I already have two, he's going to take the spot.
Okay.
And he's not here today.
So we will have to do one more pass over there. Planning Commission, Mr. Popowitz, your Planning Commission member expires October 31st. If you'd like to make an appointment now, that's fine.
I do have an appointment. I'd like to appoint Mr. Timothy Thompson to the Port Royal District.
Okay, is there a second to that?
Second.
All right. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Mr. Underwood, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Popowitz, how do you vote?
Vote aye.
Mr. Seeley, how do you vote?
Nay.
And I vote aye, so the motion carries 3-1. Mr. Thompson's appointment will take effect, I guess, November 1st. Since the other one expires October 31st, his takes effect November 1st. All righty, consent agenda, we only have warrants. Anybody want to pull warrants off? Motion to approve would be in order.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Motion carries unanimously. The consent agenda is approved. Mr. Williams, are you the representative for Sparta? Or were there more people supposed to come? It was supposed to be after 7:30. That's why I just asked. Your chief's supposed to come? Okay. I'll wait for your chief then. Mr. Underwood, can we do number 11? Oh, we need the county attorney for that. Want to do Fred funding? Agenda item number 7. I think we talked about Fred. That's right. You were going to get us some additional information on the Fred funding. Mr. Barton, you ready?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, as you said, we previously discussed this issue, and that is that the Fredericksburg City Manager, Beverly Cameron, has indicated that Fred does not intend to continue to provide service in Caroline beyond the end of the current fiscal year unless we move forward with increased funding and service levels in the county beyond what's currently in place. We have in place now one bus service for 10.5 hours a day, and after further discussion with Mr. Cameron, he's indicated that the minimum level of service that they believe is viable is 2 bus service at 16 hours a day, 5 days a week. The estimated cost to provide that increased level of service is $132,000 a year, which is approximately $42,000 more than we're paying now. The city has also indicated that although they don't anticipate this being in play in fiscal year 13, we would be accountable for a portion of, we'd be assessed a fee for to replace buses and other equipment, our share as they come due. Finally, they would also expect the county, if we are going to continue service with them, to enter into a multi-year agreement. And he defines that as 5 years, similar to a proposal that they put forward in 2008 for the other government partners. And the purpose of that is that they would like to avoid swings in funding and service levels and know that they can count on a certain level of funding and service levels for at least 5 years. That summarizes what Mr. Cameron has indicated that he would need in order to continue Fred service in Caroline beyond the end of the current fiscal year.
Okay, I think we had pretty much talked about this, and I think the board had pretty much agreed that we would go forward. I think the issues we had were finalizing the exact costs and also allowing the board to have some input into what the routes were. So I think we have that now.
He did indicate that they would continue to do that as they had in the past. They do reserve the right to reject what they deem to be unworkable, but certainly they would give us full input into what the schedules would look like.
Yeah, I think my opinion was it's a really good idea to have Fred keep going, especially if we're going to have McKesson in. I think Mr. Akers mentioned the YMCA and maybe getting people to there. So I think as far as Fred and jobs, it's good to have. So we should go forward. But what's the rest of the board think?
Mr. Chairman, to that end, George Washington Regional Commission and King George County are kind of we're both running into the same problem with Fred. They are looking to try to find alternatives. Is there some way we can put, if we do go forward with this, we can put some sort of caveat in there that if we find alternative transportation that is less expensive, they would let us out of the contract?
Well, we're not going to do a multi-year until July 1 next year. So we have
some time.
We have some time to make sure that happens.
Okay.
So I think that's a good point. We won't be locked in. Greyhound comes up with some idea to run a bus through here, and we could do that. That would work.
I think they were looking at some sort of van service that might be workable for both counties. And I don't know. We just got started on that at the meeting before last, so we haven't gotten any information back yet. But I know that Georgia Washington Regional Commission is working on that.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point, because I had heard that King George had stopped Fred, and they were looking for an alternative, which is van service. I don't know if they have van service that's going to go from the start of King George or the other side of Port Royal to Dahlgren, which would be good. But I know for us, we need to give people to Carmel Church to go to work. So I think that's a good point. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, my only concern, along with Mr. Popowitz, is the term of the contract. And then secondly, as I listened to Mr. Barton, they want to control the route as well as have us sign a 5-year contract. I think that's a little too much. I think we need a lot
we're going to control the route. So we're going to have input into the routes.
Right. But when there's an impasse, it seems like it's on. We lean on their side. Right. So I think we need to make sure that we're doing due diligence here for the citizens. So I want to make sure that
we'll ask Mr. Barton to make sure he goes back and
absolutely
enthusiastically or emphatically say that we would like to have input into the routes, just not cosmetic and whatnot. And we'll do anything, as you and Mr. Popper said before, we do a multi-year contract, make sure we sit down and talk with them. And we have like some sort of outcome.
And finally, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, sir.
I'd like for them to explain or how they came about the 2 buses for the number of hours. Right now, he said 1 bus at 10.5 hours of service. He says recommended 2 buses. I'd like to know how he came to that conclusion. What was what factors and variables were used to determine that you need to do that? That needs to be done in the county.
Mr. Chairman,
Ms. Sealy, were you done?
Yes.
I was just curious if they could give us what they project the 5-year cost would be, year 1, year 2, year 3, and then what that replacement cost, what they think our portion of that would be. I mean, are we buying 2 full buses?
Right.
I just think we need to know that cost, because we could come up and they'd say, okay, it was $300,000. For replacement of buses, $300,000 would be a little excessive, but we don't. They're just saying we'd be responsible for cost. But I'd like to see what the 5-year, is it 140, 180, 190, 200? I mean, what do they think the cost is going to be on the out years?
Exactly. So really, it's like a 2-step process. Our first step was to say, and I find it curious that they wanted $41,984 more, which brought the grand total to $132,000 even. Just a curiosity of round numbers. But our first task was to see if we could add this additional funding so they would continue Fred past December. So if we do that, we basically lock them in until June 30th of next year. And then as we approach June 30th of next year, we'll add things into what the maintenance fees would be, being able to get out of a multi-year contract and kind of define the terms. So I think there'll be a second step to this whole process.
And the effectiveness of the routes.
Exactly. So if we want to take care of the first part and say we're going to go ahead and add the $41,984 now, we'll give Mr. Parton the authority to make sure he negotiates or sets up a negotiating session on the multi-year contract and things of that nature, the other steps that we've got to go through, and I think we're good. Okay? Sound good to you?
Yes.
All right, ready to move on? We have a motion to that effect, the $41,984.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Underwood, seconded by Mr. Sealy. And your motions, I'm gonna add to say that they're they're appropriating the 41,984 and asking staff to gather additional details on the routes, the maintenance plan, and the multi-year contract.
And the cost of the multi-year contract.
Right, and the cost of the multi-year contract. You got that?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the alternatives.
And the ability to get out if we have an alternative.
Yes.
So that's part of the multi-year contract?
Yes.
That's our out clause, I guess?
Yes.
Okay. No other discussion. Motion was made by Mr. Underwood, seconded by Mr. Seeley. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. So that motion carries unanimously. Oh, beat out revenue share? We have a closed meeting? Rock and roll. Okay. Is the chief from Sparta here? I can't hear you. I mean, we can wait. Well, we said we start at 6, so it's up to you. You want to go now? Are you folks from in the back from Sparta? And y'all are here to say that you need to have some work done on the fire station? You going to support Mr. Williams when he gets up here?
I hope so.
Hilton, how you doing?
Good evening. How's everybody doing?
Good
I'm
to
just
see you.
fine. I guess everybody know we had a flood in the area and lost a lot of stuff in the fire department. And in the meantime, we had to take trucks out of different places at Salem Church, and I got one in my yard that we had to burn down the other end for the road washed out several places and all. So we had a lot of stuff that was damaged, and we had it all destructed, torn down, and we had people coming to spray for the mold and everything. And right now we're doing a lot of standby because we don't have a decent living quarters to be in. But we're getting back on that feet, and tomorrow is hopefully going to be reconstruction being taken place. And I got some figures here that I can go by, and hopefully. For the storage trailers, we got 2 pods, it's $197. The temporary storage trailer immediately after the flood was $197. 2 pods of $750. Demolition of damaged drywall, carpet, drop ceiling, etc., $960. Cleaning and sanitation of building due to contaminated flood waters, $3,400. Reconstruction cost, $19,950. Replacement of damaged electrical and mechanical items, hot water heater, furnace, motor, air conditioning unit, pump, motor, door repair, $2,600. That's just estimate only on that one now. Replacement of damaged furnaces and fixtures, chairs, desks, vanities, cabinets, carpet, mattresses, bunk beds, linen, end tables, coffee table, file cabinets, vacuum cleaner, battery charger, lawnmower, TV, cork boards. And the total is $33,557.07. Now I don't know, like I say, what's this other building going to be for the, put everything back. Doug has those figures, I don't, but it's I think that Nelson Construction will be putting everything back, hopefully, and we'll be back in the building shortly.
Okay. Now the last 3 things or so on your list, because we've got your list in front of us. You got $19,950 for reconstruction, $2,600 and $5,700. But on the far side, it says those are estimates only. So
that's what he's got on his paper now. He was handling this, and I'm just kind of in the middle of it. But he had his paperwork, and he was handling pretty much the whole project. And I'm just speaking on his behalf tonight. He was supposed to be here, but evidently something came up. So I'm just on some of it, but
I'm just a little concerned about if we say right now, here's $33,000, go ahead, fix everything, and the $19,950, almost $20,000, 2/3 of that money is something that's an estimate. So if he comes back and says instead of $20,000, it's really $40,000, you really don't want to come back a second time and say I need $20,000 more. So I just want to get a comfort level of how you guys feel about that number.
okay, well, Mr. Garnick,
Mr. Chairman, I'll share since District Chief Terry's not here. $19,950 is a hard-written estimate from a contractor to that effect. The furnishings, the electrical repair, are good faith estimates provided by the station. There is some suggestive change to that, but his figures seem to be very in line with his estimates on what he believes he can buy a chair for and a desk and end tables. The bulk of that expense, though, came from his estimates from a contractor.
Okay. He's going to buy these things off an existing state contract or something like that, or?
Those furnishing items, if I know Chief Terry, he will go to extra means to get the best price available, whether it be contract or through the contacts that their organization has.
We should look for him Friday at the dump in Richmond, right? Okay. All right. Mr. Underwood, questions?
No, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Popowitz?
No, sir.
Mr. Sealy?
Mr. Chairman, I've been down and was down there the night the flood started, and I got to say that everybody down there did everything they could to save what was there. The water came up quick, and it wicked up everything. So I've talked to Chief Terry several times about the estimate, and he seemed rather confident that this would cover the damages that they needed to repair.
Okay.
With that, I'd like to make a motion that we appropriate $33,557.07 to repair the Sparta Fire Station.
Second.
Okay. Motion made. That was a little premature because we didn't vote yet. So, discussion on the motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. All right, the motion carries. Okay. All right.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Garnett, Mr. Williams, best of luck to you. If you could please keep the board apprised of your costs, just to make sure there's nothing out of line. I mean, I know you personally, so I believe in what you guys are doing. But if you come back and say, well, it's really $75,000, we might have to sit down and talk.
Okay.
So, okay? But
Thanks
best of luck to you, and I know you guys will do the best you can.
Thanks a lot for your time.
My pleasure. All righty. I can't do the public hearing.
Can you do 9?
Can I do one more? Mr. Fincham, is the revenue sharing with VDOT yours? Are you ready? Are you going to be long?
There's not much here.
Zach, thank you. That was the word.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the next item on your agenda is the possible participation in the FY 2013 VDOT Revenue Sharing Program. As the board is aware, this is an annual program conducted by VDOT, which allows local governments to participate on a 50-50 cost share basis to have road improvements constructed subject to VDOT standards for roads that might not otherwise qualify for one of the other funding sources available through VDOT. We've received the annual notice, which has a November 1st deadline to advise VDOT of whether the county wishes to participate in the program this year, with a resolution required of the Board of Supervisors by December 1st if you do choose to participate. Over the years, the county has made a number of revenue sharing requests to VDOT. Several of these are so old, nobody seems to recall just exactly what the application was for. And several other projects have fallen by the wayside due to reprioritization of projects and funding by the Board of Supervisors. For example, the entrance to Lake Landor was a revenue sharing project that the board approved. So with that, we actually have one current project, which is the Route 1 639 improvements that VDOT is currently doing the preliminary engineering for that project. with an estimate of approximately $600,000 in local match. The request tonight is whether the board wants to make application for a project in the 2013 revenue sharing program. We've identified one potential project that we were working on related to the YMCA, which would involve potentially reconstructing a portion of Durrett Road, which is Route 622, which is currently a gravel road that would redesign and potentially reconstruct that to a more current VDOT standard. And if there are any other potential items that the board would direct us to look at, now is the time.
Thank you, Mr. Fincham. And again, this particular program is a 50-50 match.
Yes, sir.
So if we identify a road that costs $200,000 or whatever, the county would have to come up with half of that money.
Yes, sir.
We don't have a cost. I saw this 149, but that was an old project. We don't have a cost for the road you're proposing now.
We do not have a cost estimate. We are preparing an estimate at this time.
So it would probably be in the county's best interest to say, yes, we're going to participate, even if we decide not to later on, because we at least keep the door open.
Yes, sir. We have to notify VDOT by November 1st, which
we don't meet again until
we
meet on November 1st.
Right. And we would actually have to send a board resolution by December 1st. So the board could say, yes, we are interested in participating, but if in the end you decide not to, we would simply not send the resolution to VDOT supporting the request.
Okay. I mean, we can do that. I don't know if anybody was keeping track, but we spent $222,000 already today. So in doing another road, I mean, of course, we get it at a substantial discount, but we have to pay half of whatever the bill is. So we can say yes now to keep the door open, and once we know the cost, I doubt the road's going to cost $12.63, but if it's something reasonable, we can consider it. Any problem with saying yes, we'll move ahead? All right. The county attorney's not here, so I don't have anybody to tell me I have to do it in a motion. But if you would like to put it in a motion, that'd be good.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay. Mr. Popowitz makes a motion that we move forward with the participation in the VDOT revenue sharing program. Is there a second?
Second.
Seeley makes the second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion carries unanimously. And that was the chief that came in, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Chief, you want to say anything? I was hoping you would say that. We already approved you, so you're okay, and we just want to make sure since you came in, I wanted to recognize you and kind of ask that you make sure you go to the dump and get that furniture from Richmond so it doesn't cost that much. They already said that's what you were going to do, so. All right, thank you very much. We have public comment at 7:30, public hearing after that, and a couple of more items. Mrs. Carter, you're here for the public hearing, right? Okay, and that's all. Okay, that's all? You here for more? Oh, number 10. Okay, when we come back, we'll do that. 10 will be next. Yeah, we'll do the public comment, public hearing, and then we'll go to 10. We will we'll take about a 15-minute supervisor minute break, and we'll be back close to 7:30.